Hello, the Baron's Game Room. I'm Aaron as always, and let's try to get back to some semblance of normalism this week with a review and how to play video. This week, I want to talk about the game I kind of showed off in my little rant last week, Canosa. Now, to be clear, this is Canosa, an abstract strategy game made by One Day West Games, not Canasta. That's a card game, which I don't know how to play, but I do know how to play this. So, yeah, let's get to the table. Let's talk about it. Now, obviously, I absolutely love this box and the way it looks. It's very beautiful. There is a normal version of this game that comes in just like a cardboard box and all that, but we backed at this fancy level for our separate campaign. They gave us this. Watch this open up. Super cool. And there's your board on the underside, and let's get the rest of this out of here. They only made 100 of these in this, so we were number 55 of 100. Open that up. Look at those pieces. And then there's our rule book. Oh, yeah, there's a little signature in here too. In Canosa, you are actually playing as rival sirens. A ship has unfortunately wrecked in between your two islands, and you are both trying to use your siren powers to lure sailors to your island and keep them from going to the other siren's island. The first player to get 4 sailors to their island wins the game. For setup, you can slide the lid back onto the box, forming your game board. I actually believe the cardboard game has some sort of similar thing too, where like the box that it all goes in becomes your play area. I don't own one obviously, but I'm pretty sure I've seen that as well. Then you'll take your 2 siren pieces and place them onto their matching homes, the gold on the gold, the silver on the silver. These are their islands. Then you can place out the 10 sailor pieces on these dots on the center of the board, center-ish of the board, which looks something like this. And then you can take these colored rings, matching the color of the sirens, and place them on the pawns. You can tell which color by the color of the dot. That's the silver dot, so they get a silver ring. That's a gold dot, so a gold ring. And then you'll have 2 extras. Take those last 2 and put them on your siren. And the game is set up and you're ready to start. On a player's turn, they must take 2 actions. Any combination of the following actions or doing the same action twice is allowed. So let's go over those actions. One action you can do is you can move your siren 1 space in any direction, like a king moves in chess. So up, down, left, right, diagonal, it's all allowed. 1 space in any direction. Another action you can perform is moving a sailor that you have influence over. The color ring on the sailor shows who has influence over that sailor. So right now, gold has influence over all these, and silver player has influence over all these. And the silver player's turn, an action they could take is moving a sailor they have influence over 1 space orthogonally towards their island. So this character can move this way as it is closer to the island, or this way as it is closer towards the island. But they couldn't move like back over here or over there, as that would be getting closer to that island. You can only draw them in closer. So 1 space orthogonally towards your island. Another action you can take is, as your siren, you can transfer one of these influence rings from your siren to an adjacent sailor. If there is a sailor in any spot the siren could move to, they could put a ring on them. Whatever the top color ring is who currently has influence over that sailor. So right now, the gold player has taken control of this sailor right here. And lastly, the last action you can take is to actually take a ring back from a sailor back to your siren. Now, while that is all the basics, there is a little more nuance to all those actions, so let's go over those in a little more detail real quick. In general, there is no jumping allowed in this game at all. There's never a time where you're able to leap over a piece or anything, whether you control it or not. You always must move to adjacent unoccupied spaces, so no jumping around. Like this is a lot of times just going diagonal. Whoops. But no like leaping over pieces or anything. That is not allowed, regardless of whether you're a siren or a sailor. It's also important to know that once you have left your island, you cannot ever go back to your island. So as soon as the siren leaves its space, the gold player can never go back to the gold space here. You also can never step on your opponent's island either. So there's no time ever when I'm over here would the gold player be allowed to step on that island. I don't know why you think you would be able to, but it is specified in the rules, so I'll go ahead and say it too. You're not allowed to put one of your rings on your opponent's siren. That doesn't make any sense. They're a magical siren like you. They're not going to listen to your call. So, only onto sailors. You also cannot pull off an opponent's ring from theirs. You can only transfer your rings onto sailors or pull one of your rings off. I can't pull an opponent's ring off a sailor onto mine. Again, doesn't make much sense. All pieces can have a maximum of 3 rings on them. So if your siren has 3 rings on them, if they were to try and pull another one over to them, they wouldn't be allowed to, because you can only have 3 rings on your siren at a time. That goes for sailors as well. So if you end up getting 3 rings stacked onto a sailor, they cannot get any more. That means this is permanently the silver player's under the silver player's control, unless the silver player comes up and pulls that off of them, because you cannot have more than 3 rings on any piece. If a sailor has no rings on it, they're just neutral, no one has control over them, and thus no one can move that piece. It actually is possible for the sirens to kind of fight a little. If, for example, one siren has more rings than the other for any reason, then the siren with more rings is allowed to move into the space of the other siren with fewer rings and push them to any open adjacent space. So you can move into their space and push them out to any legal adjacent space they can be moved to. But again, that's only if your siren has more rings than your opponent's siren. The attacking siren has to have more rings than the other siren they're attacking. And the last thing we need to go over is scoring. Scoring is when you successfully move one of these sailor pieces to your island. Let's go over what happens then. When a sailor is successfully moved to your island, they are removed from the board, and then depending on how many rings they have on them, a few different things can happen. Let's go over those. If there's only 1 ring on the siren, you'll simply return it back to your siren, assuming you do not already have 3 rings on you. This one only had 2, so it could receive it. But let's say another one goes and comes off the board. Now the siren already has 3 rings on it. It cannot have more than 3 rings, so this ring is removed from the game. Simply leave it off the side of the board, put it back in the box, whatever. There is no way for that ring to come out. It is permanently removed from the game. If, for example, a sailor hits the island and they have multiple rings of the same color on them, that is possible. If they end up having multiple rings of the same color, the sailor is removed, and then no matter how many are on here, whether it's 2 or 3, 1 goes back to your thing. Even though there is room for a third one, doesn't matter. 1 goes back to the siren, and the other one is removed from the game. Or other 2 if you had 3 there. So if there's multiple rings of the same color on a sailor, only 1 of those rings ever goes back to the siren. The other is removed from the game, or the 2 other are removed from the game. And finally, if there are 2 different colors on the siren, the same rules apply as before, but now it applies to both sirens. 1 ring goes back to each siren, and then if there are any extras, they are removed from the game. Again, the same thing would work if you had something like this as well. There's 2 silvers here, so it will go off. Then you would return 1 to each siren, although that one actually has too many right now. And then the other would just go away, removed from the game. Again, the game ends immediately once any player scores their 4th sailor. They win the game. This is another abstract strategy game, and abstract strategy games can be a little difficult to talk about, as in they're all relatively simple games, but this is just another one that's successful like that. I think like most successful abstract strategy games, it is an overall simple game that has so much depth and strategy to it and how it plays out, and Canosa does that great. I absolutely love the thematics of it, the battling sirens. Hello, cat. What's up? And I love that there are lots of little nuances to the game. Like, for example, you might think that keeping your sailors that you control somewhere in the center of the board is a bad idea, because that makes it where your opponent's siren can probably get to them more easy and take control of them. And you're not wrong, but moving them to the outside to try and keep them away from the other siren is also a great way to get yourself trapped. Because remember, sailors can only move 1 space towards the island of whoever controls them. So they don't have as much movement as the sirens do, not much free will about it. If they end up going to those edges, then they only have 1 space they can move, just ticking closer towards your island. And if the opponent gets their siren over there and takes control of them right at the edge of your island, they are essentially a blockade now, stopping any of your other sailors from getting in from that direction. We've watched this happen several times, and it's stuff like that that I really, really enjoy about this game. Now, obviously, the form factor of it all, the beautiful box and the pieces, was certainly a selling point to me on this game, but I think even if they had released the normal box version first, I think I still would have really liked this game a lot. I don't think the form factor is selling me that hard on it. It is a beautiful game, but I really love the actual game itself. It's very elegant, it's very enjoyable. Me and my wife love playing this game. Unfortunately, I believe One Day West Games has since closed their doors. I believe they are no longer in business, which super sucks because as I said, I like this game a lot, and I would have loved to have seen more games from these guys and what else they could do. And unfortunately, I think also the people that actually made the box and all the pieces, Three Griffin Studios, I believe they've also shut down since, which is awful because we had actually reached out to them a few years back about maybe working with us to do something like this for our game Velatum. But this project was a little bit bigger than they had initially thought, and it was a lot of work, and they just weren't ready to get back into a similar project yet. So we thought we'd try again later, but unfortunately, before we were ready to try and reach out to them again, they closed their doors too, which is awful because, again, this is a very beautiful game. It's a very well-designed game. Both parts that came together to make this really did great at it. I think it's pretty obvious what the rating's going to be for this one. Canosa takes all the elements that you want to find in a good abstract strategy game and does them well, and they partnered up with a great company to make a fantastic looking game. Canosa, whether you find one of these copies somewhere or you find one of the more normal copies, I think it's definitely worth a purchase. This is very obviously Baron approved.